Miss Carrie so she can introduce our speaker tonight.
Thanks, Richard.
Oh, thanks. Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm an alcoholic.
Carrie.
Hi. I've heard a few bad words out of her mouth. I'll tell you that. No, it has been, I've known you for 2 years now? A little over 3, 2, somewhere in there. I don't know, it just flies by, doesn't it? And it's just been such a pleasure and a joy and an honor to get to know you and to walk through this crazy stuff, and to hold hands and trudge as we trudge. And I tell you what, this woman, I don't remember ever seeing her in a meeting without a smile on her face. Really. I mean, she knows where the solution is, guys. And so I'm just going to give her the mic.
Thanks, Carrie.
I did make some notes, just in case. I'm Melissa, and I'm an alcoholic. And I feel very short. So my sobriety date is January 15th, 1999. And it's by the grace of God and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've been sober that long. I have a sponsor. I have a home group. I consider the Alano Club or the Cypresswood group my home group, but specifically the women's meeting on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. Those women have helped me get plugged back in, and I appreciate that. I want to thank Richard for asking me to do this. I am nervous, but I've only told my story one other time in all these years, and it was probably between 1 and 2 years sober. I remember my sponsor at the time saying, don't spend a lot of time on your drunk-a-log. People don't want to hear that. And it was at a club that I had never been to before, or a group I'd never been to before. And so they were all strangers in the, at the meeting. And I just breezed through it. I was done. I want to say like in 20 minutes, or it was really fast. And I just wrapped it up by and that's all, And it was just very awkward. I was just so glad that it was over. And I did not ever want to do that again. And here I am, but, 20 years later. But I've been praying to God since Richard asked, because he asked a couple of months ago, and I can get in my head, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and this would be the thing that popped in my mind, and I was like, what am I going to, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to be able to last more than 20 minutes? But I just had to pray and turn it over to God. And so I'm asking him once again to please let my words be authentic, let my story hopefully touch someone in this room. And with that, I'm going to start. So I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I was born in the late 60s in Memphis, Tennessee. My parents, I already had an older brother, and I felt like I had a great life. I don't have a lot of memories from when I was little. I don't know if that's natural or not, but I just remember being happy. I didn't have any needs. I had friends. I got to do extracurricular activities. We went on vacations, and I just remember being happy. It wasn't until about 10 years old that was the first time I can recall being a victim. And I carried that role up until I came to this program. My parents divorced, and I just thought, I cannot believe they're doing this to me. It didn't, and that's probably natural for a 10-year-old and to be upset, but I was 30-something when I got here, and I was still I can't believe they did that to me. I found out around that time that part of the reason for the divorce was my dad had been in a relationship with somebody else. And again, I just thought, I can't believe he would do that to me. It never occurred to me that he was doing this to my mother. It was always to me. And, my parents started dating, and I remember thinking it was exciting and strange at first and liked the people. And as soon as my mom married the guy, my stepfather, I couldn't stand him. When he started telling me what to do, I no longer liked him. And so I became quite a little brat. And their marriage, he got a job, and we moved to Mississippi. I didn't want to be 5 hours away from my dad, from my friends, from the only the only house I'd ever known, growing up in. I was just very upset, but I just realized I need to back up a little bit. Growing up, my best friend, her mom was an alcoholic, and that's what I heard my parents refer to her as. I got to witness it firsthand. She didn't work outside the home. She would be asleep when we got home from school, or what I thought was asleep. She, I'd hear my mom saying, yeah, she drinks straight vodka like it's a glass of water, or tells people it's water and it's, just straight vodka. And, she would yell at us and do things that I just, that's what my mom said. She's an alcoholic. We also had a next door neighbor that my mom said is an alcoholic. And she would show up at our doorstep, stumbling, slurring her speech, saying inappropriate things. And I didn't understand, as a kid, that it was a disease, that they didn't have any control or choice in it. I just thought that it was sad that they didn't choose their family or choose to not do that. But that was, I mention it because that was what an alcoholic looked like to me. That was my definition, and I grew up thinking that you had to drink all day, every day, and that you didn't work. And so those were the things that to me an alcoholic is. My parents drank, but I don't recall ever seeing them drunk as a kid. We had a bar in our house, and I did occasionally sneak some drinks. I don't remember the first one or any special feeling. I think I liked the bottle that one of them was in. It was kind of fancy, and so I was like, I want to try that. What's in there? My dad giving me sips of his beer. I thought it tasted disgusting, but for some reason I would do it again. And but I don't really remember anything, so far as my immediate family, so far as their alcohol use. Like I said, we ended up moving to Mississippi, and I was miserable. I was like, it was a small town. They had 2 public high schools, and I just was miserable. Those first couple of years, I just remember being so depressed. My mom suggested that I go to therapy, and it was this group therapy, and all the kids in there did drugs and drank, and I didn't, and so I didn't see how I fit in with that. But the therapist said, they avoid what's going on in their lives by drinking and drugging, and Melissa does it by activities. I was involved in dance and cheer and made good grades and did all that, and that was my escape. And so, I don't know. I still didn't believe it at the time, but that was just kind of what was going on with me. I had a boyfriend in 9th grade that drank a lot, and I thought, I told him that wasn't a good idea. My friend's mom was an alcoholic, and we shouldn't do that. And like within a year later, I had my first blackout, so I didn't hold on to that for very long. I never drank, I don't think, like a normal person. It was just, I thought that was the point. You drank to get drunk. And the consequences didn't seem to matter. I just thought that's what kids do. We're teenagers and we're supposed to drink and get drunk. And my parents, there were times that only maybe a couple of times, one of them confronted me about it, and I was very manipulative and could say, well, my dad, I told him that my stepmother and my stepsister were getting the love and attention that I was supposed to be getting, and I never had any consequence for my behavior. My mom, I would say, I'm going to go live with Dad. And so I kept manipulating them, and I never had any consequences for that behavior, except for the things, the blacking out, and things would happen that I didn't intend to happen. I guess those feelings inside, that separation from God, I didn't know that was what was going on at the time, but my soul was getting sicker and sicker. As many of you know, sometimes when alcohol and things happen that I didn't intend to happen, were involved guys, and I just, I had this one idea of how I was going to live. I think my mom was a virgin when she got married, and so I thought that's probably what I would do, and then I didn't. And so that was one thing, and it just kept, like I said, there were times that I consented probably, and maybe times that I don't recall giving consent because I was in a blackout. But to me, I was just a bad person, and God could not love me. And there were some other experiences when we first got to Mississippi. My parents thought it would be a good idea for us to meet kids by going to church, and we had never gone to church my whole life. And then we went to church, and somebody told me my parents were going to go to hell because they got divorced. They did this thing where they would pray after every Sunday school class, and I was just in such fear that they were going to ask me to pray, and I didn't know how to pray, and I didn't know anything about the Bible, and I can't believe it. It really turned me off. There were certain things in my life that really set me apart from God, and I would say that would be one of them. I felt like they were hypocritical, and just my experiences. And I debated whether I was going to share this or not, but one of the things that, I talked about not feeling like God could love me. So as a teenager, I also thought certain things wouldn't happen, and they did, and I got pregnant. And my mom figured it out, and she took me, she hawked her wedding rings from her first marriage, so my stepfather wouldn't know, and we went to a town about an hour away, because it was a bigger town, and she told him we were going to go shopping for the day, and then we went to end that pregnancy. And oh God, I didn't really make the decision at the time. My mom just kind of took over when she figured it out. But that was something I carried around for a long time, the guilt and the shame. Because that wasn't the life that, I thought I was going to be living. And I just didn't think I could come back from that. And like I said, I debated whether to share that or not, but it was a key part of my story that set me apart and made me feel like I was not worthy. I continued to drink. It was hard to get liquor being, a teenager with braces on your teeth, but we found a way. We lived on the Mississippi-Louisiana state line, so you could drive across the bridge and go to the daiquiri shack and the pool hall, and they would sell it to you with braces on your teeth. And I had an accident, after drinking a little bit one night. I didn't feel like I was drunk, but I refused to go to the hospital because I thought, they're going to test my blood. And so I waited a long time before going home. I had a broken nose, but I waited to go to the hospital the next day. I was like, I don't want to go. But, so there were those things that happened, but it just never occurred to me that alcohol was the problem. It was the fact that I didn't save myself for marriage, or that I had ended a pregnancy or done things that I hadn't planned on doing and didn't think I should be doing. And that's what I thought was wrong with me. I went into, one time, again, I was just very depressed, and so my mom took me to our physician, and they did blood work, and they said, well, there might be a slight imbalance, and she might be depressed. But I ended up going to a psych ward in Jackson because, again, we had to go to another town. And, oh, God, it was, I realized I was just a little depressed. It was not, there were some scary people on that ward. And they had them mixed in with the AA people. I think about, looking back at my history, the times that I came in contact with the solution and didn't know that I was going to need that solution. The roommate I had for maybe one night, she was there because she was an alcoholic, and she was detoxing, or I guess she had already detoxed because she was going home like the next day, but she had been there to get sober. But like I said, we were all kind of mixed in, and there were some people who had more delusional, because I was wearing a certain color or something about the devil. And so I just, I didn't, but I realized, okay, maybe I'm just a little depressed. So there were those times, like I said, that I came in contact with the solution, but didn't know that that's what I was going to need at that time. By the time I graduated, I was just like, I cannot wait to get out of this state and out of this house And so I only applied to schools to go to college. I was fortunate that my parents, when they divorced, my dad said he would pay for our college. And so I didn't have to worry about that, but I applied to all schools that were out of state. And that's how I ended up in Texas. So, and I just thought things were going to be so different. You know, I was an adult now, and I even changed. My family calls me Missy, and so I went to college, and I didn't know a soul at that campus, and that was the way I wanted it. That way nobody knew my history, and I could start over. And so that's when I became Melissa. My parents still call me Missy, but, you know, it was the same stuff over and over again. I would have blackouts. Things would happen I didn't intend to happen. My freshman year, I tried to commit suicide. I don't think so much. It was just kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing because I had partied all weekend and I didn't have any of my work done for Monday. And my solution was just, well, take a bunch of pills. And you know, other people were stressed, but I felt like my stress was different than everybody else's. And, you know, it was just those things that I constantly separated myself from other people and thinking that I was something special and different. My dad, I remember he came to pick me up at the end of the school year, and I was supposed to have all my stuff packed. Well, I thought, I'm going to go out and party, and I took a little pill or something also. And I thought, I'll just stay up and pack all night. Well, I passed out somewhere and woke up, and he had been on campus for a couple hours looking for me. And so, you know, I show up, and he helps me pack. And it just kind of became a joke. We got home, and my stepmom said, how did it go? And he's like, well, she wasn't even there when I got there. But he laughed about it, and, you know, there were no consequences. It just, nobody ever said, I think you have a drinking problem. But in college, I took a course. I can't tell you what it was, but I remember a guy who had been in a fraternity there spoke to us about AA, and he talked about being an alcoholic, and I thought, there's no way, he's too young. So again, there were those times in my life that the solution was there, and I just didn't, I couldn't hear it at that time. So I graduated from college, moved to Houston. And again, I thought, okay, I'm in my early 20s. I have a job. I have a college degree. I'm going to get my life together. And it just, you know, over the years, the same thing. I would have blackouts. I didn't drink every day, but when I did, I didn't know what was going to happen. I would say, you know, I'm only going to have 2. And, you know, and then a blackout and wake up the next morning, look out the blinds. Did I drive? Did I not drive? You know, where am I? That kind of thing. I would go to therapists because, again, I thought maybe if we just fix the pain that my parents' divorce caused, my parents, you know, a lot of people get divorced, but the pain that my parents caused by getting a divorce, the living with a stepfather that I couldn't stand, that I thought was a jerk, the hurt that boyfriends that, you know, dumped me or whatever, or treated me a certain way, if I could just heal from that, I would be okay. My drinking didn't occur to me that I needed to change that. I kept thinking that if I just, you know, and my friends would tell me, oh, you just need to eat first, or stay away from the tequila, or, you know, and I had friends that I had different groups of friends, and I think, you know, people talk in the rooms about being like a chameleon, and I think I had different groups that I could act a different way with, and they might look out for me when I was drinking, and so I was fortunate that nothing worse happened, because certainly there were times that I was not able to, you know, it was an easy target. I could have been, you know, bad things, worse things could have happened, and I'm fortunate for that. But, you know, I would buy self-help books. I would go to motivational speakers. I was never honest with therapists about my drinking. And I honestly don't remember any therapist asking, you know, do you have a problem? I mean, they just say, do you have a problem with alcohol? And I'd probably say, no. But then nobody asked me, like, well, how much do you drink and what does it look like? So about 25, I got a job, and my boss, he was in the program. And he talked about it openly. I think he was newly sober looking back, maybe a few years, because he had been at that same company and talked about how he thought he ran over somebody one night, and that's what got him into the rooms. And he had one of our coworkers go with him to make sure he didn't run somebody over, that they weren't in the street. And I would hear this, but there were plenty of my other coworkers that we would go to happy hour and get shut off. They would cut us off. They wouldn't serve us anymore at the happy hour because we were a little bit rowdy. But and I really liked this person, and he was fun, and he seemed to have a fun life. But yet at the same time, I thought how sad, because he went to meetings all the time. It sounded like, and he bowled, he went on vacation, he lived with, had roommates that were all in the program, and I just thought, oh, that's sad that he is so limited in his life. And again, solution, but I couldn't see it. And so I started there when I was 25, and then, he had recommended a therapist to me once. He said, well, she specializes in addiction, but I'm sure she could still help you anyway. And I remember asking my dad for money because, I was always maxed out on my credit cards. And I asked my dad for money to help me pay for this therapist. And I said, well, she specializes in, addiction, but I'm going to go to her anyway. He's like, well, is that a problem? I was like, nope. And he's like, okay. So it just, I still had other times with my family being out of state. They didn't see it on the regular, but when they did see me, usually I would get drunk and have a blackout or, end up on the bathroom floor. And they would find me there, but nobody would ever say, have you thought about doing something about this? I would just be kind of a joke. It would just be something to laugh about. I finally went to a therapist, and, that addiction therapist never asked me about it either, or if she did, I don't remember her asking me about it. And if she did, I probably just lied. I probably just thought, because I didn't think I had a problem. It was the last therapist that I went to that she asked, and I was honest. I told her, I have blackouts. She had the questions that she asked me, and I could say yes, yes, yes. And she suggested that I go to a meeting, and I was like, whoa, I think that's a little extreme. So I said, I'm going to try this on my own. And I did for about, I want to say 60 days or so. It wasn't until I was going to be going on a blind date. And I thought, well, I've got this. I have 2 months. I know how to control it now, and I can do this. So I went on this blind date, and I started drinking again. And it went okay for the first few weeks, maybe. But I would say maybe that was around Thanksgiving, and I would say, by early December, there was a party, and I had gotten drunk, and people made fun of me for being drunk. And I was also a crier sometimes when I would drink. Oh my gosh, poor people that I cornered and would sob to about my life, but. I was embarrassed. I didn't know these people, and I was embarrassed. But it didn't stop me, as you know, so it wasn't until January. I went to, I had these dreams of if I got a certain job, if I got in a certain relationship, I had thought if I got to a certain age that I was going to mature enough and these things wouldn't continue to happen. I had friends who I had partied with that got married and had children, and I didn't see them doing that anymore. So I thought maybe if I could do that, but I couldn't none of my relationships lasted longer than maybe 9 months if I was lucky. A lot of times they started drunk, so there's that. But I went to this some kind of business networking thing at downtown. And, it was a happy hour. I thought I was just going to be staying for a little while. And I think I stayed till it closed. I don't know. I blacked out. I drove home. I wasn't familiar with downtown, and I'm not even sure how I found my route home. But that fear, that dread when I woke up the next morning and I I had wine all over my shirt, and I wasn't sure how I'd gotten home. And I went and looked out the blinds and saw my car. I vaguely remembered then that when I got home, I'd locked my keys in my car, and I was banging on my neighbor's door because she had an extra key. I just felt so defeated. And I just thought, again, I cannot believe again. And I stayed home from work that day, and I called, and I found out where our meeting was. That was a Friday, and I didn't go, though, till the next day. I went to a meeting on a Saturday morning, and I can't remember what group it was. It was somewhere off River Oaks, and it was in a church, and they were also having Boy Scouts or something going on, and it was kind of like, the lady goes, "Are you looking for the Boy Scouts?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm looking for AA." And I went in there, and it was a huge room from what I remember. I remember more men than women, and it didn't make any sense to me. And when they got to the end, they asked if anybody wanted a desire chip, and I didn't know what that was. So I didn't do anything. And the way I remember it is they just kind of, and I made a beeline for my car, and thank goodness somebody came and tapped on my window and said, I think you should go to Post Oak tomorrow. They have a meeting at 6:30, and I think you would like that. And I'm so glad they did, because I think left to my, I feel like God intervened there. I would not have gone back. Maybe in my head I was thinking I'll come back next week, but I don't think that would have happened. And so I went that next night to the 6:30 meeting Sunday night at Post Oak, and some things made a little bit more sense. I told them that this was my second meeting. I raised my hand. I said, "Well, I went to one yesterday, but they told I'm here for the first time, and I got that I was supposed to go up and get the desire chip." And they talked about getting a sponsor and going to 90 meetings in 90 days. So I found a sponsor that night. I went up to a woman that I liked what she had shared, and she immediately was like, "Whoa, I don't feel comfortable sponsoring, but you can talk to my sponsor," and introduced me to her. And she was supposed to be here tonight, but life got in the way, and so she wasn't able to be here. But that just changed my life. She took me under her wing, and she probably had about 20 years of sobriety then, and all of her inner circle had like 10 plus years of sobriety, and those were the people I hung with. I didn't really have litter mates per se, but those were the people that became my people and showed me how to live life without a drink. I remember that first, or maybe that second meeting, saying, I have a problem with drinking. The word alcoholic, I still didn't understand that it was a disease, that it was progressive. I thought it was a morality thing. And because I didn't drink every day, and because I didn't have physical withdrawals from it, I didn't drink in the morning, or at least not on work days, that I thought, I had all the story that I told myself. I had the sick days, and that's why I stayed home from being hungover. I just told myself all these stories that I was still in such denial. But I knew I didn't want to keep living the way I had been living. I wanted something to change. And that's what she told me. She said, "We know how not to drink." And so the first step, I think I really, I was at that point. I knew I couldn't keep going the way I had been going. That I hadn't figured out all these times. I had not figured out how to control it. There was no special, only drink this or eat before this. And, I knew that wasn't the case. I finally got it. Now, when she started talking about God, I was like, whoa, because I had, as I told you, I had all those times in my life that to me, God was the church. It was, religion. And I felt like, and when you talk about turning your life and your will, it's like, no, we have brains and we're supposed to use them. But I knew that I didn't want to keep living that way. And she just said, keep with us and, just stick with it. Keep listening. I remember, so she would take me to different meetings. I went to my ones at Post Oak, but we also went to University of St. Thomas. We would go to a meeting there. There was a church on Friday nights that we went. There was a big book study or a step study meeting that we went to on Tuesday nights. And I remember after one of those meetings, her saying, just imagine God like this, and you're in the middle, and He's caring for you. And that's, for me, that's how it had to start. It's just something kind of basic. It's changed a lot over the years, but that's where it started for me. That little seed was planted. And I was fortunate enough, one of my neighbors at the time, I told him that I was going to, that I'd gotten sober and started going to meetings, and he got sober and started going to meetings too. So that was kind of cool. And then he introduced me to his friends, and I didn't have to worry about these friends wanting to date me. I'll just say that. And so I had, ready-made dates for work parties and things like that, and I didn't have to worry about any of that because I took it seriously. I did the 90 meetings in 90 days. I remember I got my 90-day chip in Nashville because I was there for work, for training. And, I took that seriously. When it got to, like I said, I slowly started opening up to the idea of God and praying and turning my life over to a higher power. But the 4th step scared me so. I thought, I have held on to these secrets for so long. I can't imagine writing them down and telling another person. I really, I tried to avoid my sponsor for a while. I remember being upset that she was making me do this. And I asked the friend that introduced me to her, I was like, how do you do it? I wanted to see, how do you do the columns? I wanted some kind of worksheet to do it. I just tried to make it, wanted to be perfect or just right. And finally, she's like, just start writing and then come over and we'll deal with it from there. And, all this time I had tried to hide from people. I knew I wasn't, like I said, I didn't think much of myself. I didn't think I was good enough or smart enough or knew how to do things. But I didn't realize how freeing it would be to say, you know what, I'm not perfect. And these are the things that are wrong with me or, my defects of character. I had no idea how freeing it would be to let that go. I knew I wasn't perfect, but I was still had in my mind, I would fantasize that I was going to get to this place where then I would be perfect. Or maybe not perfect, but, that I would have my life together. And it was just so freeing to sit down with her and tell her those things and her not be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. She shared some of her stories and it just, it was such a relief because like I said, I'd really built up a lot over that 4th step. I lost my train of thought. So then, when it came to the amends, I think about it now. I asked my dad about it recently. I didn't tell my parents I was sober until after a year. I don't know if I was afraid they were going to talk me out of it. Like, you don't have a problem. Because when I did that month, those couple of months that I didn't drink, I saw my dad. And when I didn't drink, he was like, I quit smoking at the time. And he said, would you quit drinking too? And so I don't know if that was part of it. But I suspect it was more, I didn't tell many people because I thought, if I decide not to do this thing, I don't want anybody to know that I was going to quit. Kind of like, don't tell people you're on a diet if you want to go eat the cake. And so, I don't know. I remember writing a letter to my dad and my mom. Since they were divorced, I wrote the letter to one, and then I changed the greeting at the top. I wrote the exact same thing to the other one. And I asked him, I was like, do you remember what I said in that? Like, why did I wait? And he said, I came across that letter not too long ago. And he said, and so I was like, well, look for it. I'm just curious. And then he couldn't find it. But I don't know. I suspect that I was more worried that people were going to hold me to it if I just, if I changed my mind. And then I think maybe a little bit I was worried that they might try to tell me that, no, you're not an alcoholic. So at the beginning, I think a lot of my amends were living amends. I just tried to behave in a different way towards my family and and towards my stepfather. I could actually have a nice conversation with him and be sincere and really recognize the things he had done for my mom over the years, and that maybe I was not easy to live with as a teenager, and that I brought a lot of that on me, and so it just changed our relationship. And it was slow, and it's hard when you don't live in the same state to maybe build on that as you would if you were seeing each other all the time. But I got a couple of years, and then after that first year, I just thought, you're supposed to wait a year to date. I just thought all the offers were going to come in, but they didn't. And so I was disappointed in that. But I think they also say don't go look into the rooms for dates, but that did not keep me from moving. But nothing happened, and I was able to, my dad, so I guess, I got sober in January 99. In September, or maybe August of 2001, he was diagnosed with cancer, and I thought, I haven't lived in the same state as him since I was 12, and I don't really like my job. I'm not in a relationship, so, God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And so I moved back to Memphis to be with him. And it was wonderful. We got to build this relationship. My stepmother that I had tried to kind of hate because I felt like she was contributed to the breakup of our family. We became really close. My stepsister, who's 9 years younger than I am, I never lived with her, so we got a chance to have a relationship. And then I have a half brother who's 17 years younger than I am, and he was in high school at the time, so I got to be there and develop a relationship with him. I'm glad to say my dad is still with us, and I did go to meetings in Memphis. I would say I didn't get quite as plugged in. I don't know. And I'll have to take full responsibility for that, because like I told you, my friends at Post Oak, they just brought me into their group. I didn't have to do any of the work. And going there, I did. I did go to some women's meetings, and I would do some meet with them, and developed a little bit of a relationship, but I just didn't feel as connected. I didn't get a sponsor there. But I was able to be there for my family in a way. My dad ended up coming here to MD Anderson after I moved there, but I was able to be there for my little brother and make sure he had meals and his clothes were clean and all that. And so it gave my parents some relief. In the meantime, I came here for a visit because I'd been here since 1989. I missed my friends and I missed my life here. And on a visit, my husband and I had been friends. My now husband and I had been friends. And just a group of women and men, and sparks kind of flew. So my dad got the okay that he was cancer-free, and so I moved back to Houston. I was like, and it was a year to the day from when I moved. But when I came back, I didn't get as plugged in as I had been before with AA. I had this new romance, and he's not in the program. And that kind of became the center of my world. I went to meetings, and I still, had my same sponsor. But we ended up moving out to the suburbs, and I made that my world, him my world. I just slowly kept stepping back more and more from AA. And by the time we adopted a couple of kids, I'm going to fast forward because I'm looking at the time. We tried to have children, and I could get pregnant, but I couldn't stay pregnant. And it was hard not to think back to that pregnancy as a teenager and think, oh, God is punishing me, I just knew it. But thanks to, I feel like God put the words in my husband's mouth. He one day, I was like, we'd been at church, and his it was Mother's Day, and they were christening or blessing the babies on the stage, and I just felt such jealousy and negative feelings inside. And there was a coworker that had announced she was pregnant, but she wasn't returning, and I was like, thank God, I do not want to see her pregnant. And I told my husband, I said, this isn't me. I had let go of so many things, and then there were new things that were coming up that I didn't know I wasn't in the solution, and I didn't know, but I feel like God helped my husband found the words that day, and he said, you know what, I've been thinking about that, and I think God has a different plan for us, and that's to keep a brother and a brother, or a brother and a sister together, and that changed my perspective completely. So that was on Mother's Day. We had my kids come live with us on Thanksgiving Day, and I just feel like that was, and I calculated that I got sober right before my daughter was born. And I got sober in January. She was born in May. And then my husband asked me to marry him the week my son was born. So I just feel like God was preparing us to be their parents. And but once we got them, all those promises came true. And I stepped completely away from the program. I felt like I had church and I had God. And I was good. And, I was busy with work and busy with the kids. My husband works nights. I had all these reasons why. But I really thought, they talk about how we don't graduate, but I really think in my mind, I thought I'd kind of, I got this. And that was about 2006 when we adopted them. And so I maybe went to a couple of meetings after that, but then I didn't come to another meeting until maybe 2020, 2021. And I became more of a victim, more resentful, not in solution. I don't know how I didn't drink. Well, it was by the grace of God that I didn't drink. There were thoughts that would come to my mind, like, I could drink when I was angry with my kids or angry with my husband. Because like I said, he's not one of us, and might keep a six pack of beer in the fridge that will sit there for 6 months. And I thought I could drink that and show him, and it wasn't. But then I would think, that's not where it would end, Melissa. That thought would come to me. God would give me that thought that I know that's not where it would end. It wouldn't just be the one to make him feel bad for, what I thought he had done. I had moments where I thought I could just drive my car into a tree. They were fleeting, thank God, and but I just wasn't in the solution. I was a victim. My kids were older when we adopted them, so she was 7 and he was 3, and they came with a lot of, they were taken from their mother, and so they had a lot of things, a lot of damage that had been done, and it was not an easy, I don't think parenthood, I think that's the hardest job, but there were some challenges there that I really was naive about, and thought that love and structure and me being sober were going to make a difference for them. And but I just, I got controlling and tried to fix her, and I tried to fix her till last week. No, but I still had to resist that urge and come in here and hear the solution. She's 24 now, and I have to come in here and hear the solution and talk to another alcoholic, because I want to play God. I can give him certain things, but there are times I just feel like, I know this situation and I can just fix it. And so what brought me back is my son. He wasn't the one I was worried about as much. My son, at 16, we put him in rehab. His thing was smoking weed, and he just, no matter what consequence we gave, we could take it away, it would appear again, and he just didn't care. He didn't care if he had a phone, he didn't care about having a car, he didn't care, he would do it at school. And I remember while he was in rehab telling somebody, like, what if we do this and he's still an addict? And I just could not let it go. And but as I started going to his functions, like I would go to the meetings at the rehab, and then we had him in an aftercare type program. And I would go to those, and there was solution talked about, and I was like, why did I stop going to these meetings? my children didn't know that I was sober. They knew I didn't drink, but I didn't tell them about, Alcoholics Anonymous because I had this fear that they were going to tell the teacher, and I thought they might tell their friends, and their friends were in my class, and the next thing you know, everybody would know I'm an alcoholic. But, going to his things, it made me realize what I had been missing, and I had to come back, and I'm just so thankful that I didn't have to drink over it. I may have been a crazy person for 15 years, but I didn't have to drink over it, and going through those things, I think it took me, 20 years to get that I'm not going to reach some place and then it's going to be easy. Life is always going to be life, and but there is a solution, and there may be painful times, but I can live through it without a drink. And I just feel so, I look here and I see friends, and I've realized, I told you before, I didn't put in the work when it was when I was going to meetings in Memphis, and it was hard for me when I first came back because here I hadn't had a drink in 20 years, but I was dry and I was not in solution. But it was kind of like I expected what happened the first time, where people just came and would surround me. But I had to put myself out there, and I had to talk to the newcomer, and I had to find out what's going on with other people and develop those relationships. I still tend to get here right as the meeting's starting, but I try to stay after. I'm chronically late to everything I do, pretty much. But I have to put forth that effort, and I have to, initially I was a sporadic meeting attendee. I didn't have my set meetings, and now I have my, I try to do Monday night, Thursday night, when I don't have my grandsons, Friday night, Saturday morning, and now I've started picking up Sunday afternoon women's meeting, and I just feel it keeps me connected. I've been going to church all these years. The person that I never thought I would say this, but I've been going to church for probably ever since we adopted our kids, and but I don't get from that what I get here. I get a connection to a higher power. I get solution, and for that I'm eternally grateful. And I appreciate y'all being here with me on my second time sharing. Like I said, I didn't think I ever wanted to do this again, and I'm not sure. My throat is very dry right now, but I made it through it, and that's all I had.